Thank you. Thank you for joining us again today. And always look forward to spending some time with you. Um, it's great that we could come together in this way and talk about something that is very important to many of us in the First Nation community, and that is the residential school uh, that happened many years ago. And so there's a lot of stuff that's been happening. And last week I shared a little bit about what has happened with the Pope, with his apology, and then also um, we had Phyllis Webstad here. She was here last week, and or the week before that, she was here and shared in this room with us and talked about a little bit about her work, what she's doing. So a lot of things have been happening, and as a result of that, we continue to address some of the major issues that have been happening, and we'll continue to talk about that. Once I know a little bit more about the Pope's visit, I'll let you know, and when's that's going to happen. I'm not sure if they're talking about this summer or next summer, but it will be in the summer. The Pope wanted to come here in Canada during the summertime. So they're going to accommodate him, and so I'm glad. And the discussion was that what's going to happen after he made the apology. To me and some of the uh, key people are saying it's a start, what he did. So we're grateful for that. It's a start. We got so much more to do that we need to hear from the from the Catholic Church and so forth. Next week I'll be talking about the doctrine of discoveries. That is a major issue, and so I will plan on talking about that. And if I feel that I'm ready for it, then we'll talk about it. But there's so much in that, just the doctrine of discovery. That people need to be aware of that. So people are asking questions about what is that? What do they mean by that? I didn't know that was there. Why? And so forth, and so on. So we'll be sharing a little bit about the doctrine of discovery, what it means, and so people have a general idea. And just want to encourage you guys to do your own research. And I'm sure there's people there that know more about the doctrine of discovery. And if you have people in the political area, people that that are you're friends with that are very keen into some of the things that took place with First Nations, they would be the ones you could ask, and I'm sure they'll give you help in finding some of the inquiries that you might have. I will be talking to a couple people, maybe more, between now and next week. And if I feel that maybe they should come here, rather than me telling you what they said, maybe you could hear from them directly. So if they have the time, and depending on the weather, it's cold out here today, it's snowing, and I hear Winnipeg's having a blizzard. So we're we're enjoying the cold. Hopefully it'll go away in no time. But what I want to talk briefly today is something that has come up, and a lot of people have asked questions regarding that, and that is the intergenerational survivors. What does that mean? Who are they, and so forth? It pretty in summary, just to put it really short, it means your parents or your grandparents, those that are older than you, that went to residential school, but you never did. You never went to residential school. Maybe your parents did not go to residential school, but your grandparents went to residential school. And so some of the traumas that people are experiencing, when you hear them talk, these intergenerational traumas that people are experiencing in their own personal life, it goes back to their parents, their grandparents that went to residential school. And I did talk to a few people that, and I won't mention their names because I respect them, and I just want to thank them for sharing with me how it affected them. They never went to residential school. They didn't go there. And some of them went just the tail end in day school, but as far as residential school, no. But they experienced the trauma. One of the things that I heard was that that their dad never expressed any kind of warmth or any kind of wanting to be with his kids, his own kids. And in other words, this individual shared with me that she never heard her dad say to her, "I love you." Never heard that. And she said, my dad gave me a hug once, just once, and I still remember that hug. And she was been longing for those years when she was young, for her dad to support her, to give her the the emotional support and just the empowerment that parents give to their children. That wasn't there. So that is something that came out, and she said it was directly because of his residential school. And I asked the question, do you think maybe your parents experienced some trauma at residential school? It's very likely that they did, but they never did talk about that. They never did talk about their experience in residential school. And so when people go through residential school and they experience, like I did, some of the awful things, some of the terrible things, and like I didn't see the murders that took place. Now we're finding unmarked graves. I didn't see that, but I heard people talking about it. And so some of these people older than me talk about that, and they experienced that. So people were traumatized when they saw their friends that were in residential school that were murdered in residential school, and they were buried near the school, and they were hoping that they would never be discovered. But that is a very dramatic experience that someone, a little boy or little girl, would experience that. And then some people experience what I went through, sexual abuse, physical abuse, belittling, and so forth. Those are very, very dramatic experiences for a 5 and 6-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl to go through. And so for many years, I always tell the story. I didn't tell anybody. It was here. But if you don't deal with the traumas that took place in your life, at some point in time, those things are going to leak out. And when they do leak out, It's very hurtful, not only to yourself, but to those around you. And so it's people resort to drinking alcohol and so forth. And so that's what, in summary, what people are saying about what intergenerational uh, 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 residential school survivors mean to them. And it not only the residential school survivors, but it talks about other people that never went to residential school, but they experienced trauma in their lives. And if they don't deal with those things, at some point in time it will come out. Denial is a word, and we talk about that all the time. Denial is simply means not acknowledging the the trauma that you experience, not acknowledging the trauma that you experience and what you went through. You can deny it, but it won't go away. And then the other one is people talk about those that went to their parents or grandparents that went to residential school. They minimize their experience, their bad experience in residential school. So minimizing is simply saying, they don't want to talk. Yeah, I went through that, and then they just put it down, and that's as far as they go, but never really coming out. So what they're saying is that, among other things, if you don't deal with those things, then you will experience it. It will come out at some point in time. It will come out, and that's why a lot of people experience. Some of the residential school survivors, their children that never went to residential schools, they experience things in their lives when they were young, and when they get married, they have their relationship with their spouse is not a healthy one. See, what really took place? Why is that? When you look at the history of First Nation people, when the newcomers came, we had our lives. We had our way of lives. In fact, it was a beautiful life. It was a fantastic life. We had enormous pride in who we were as First Nation. The stories that I hear, that before the newcomers came, our ancestors were very proud, and it was a beautiful way of life. There was no alcohol, there was no drugs, nothing, and they had tremendous values, and they would pass those values to their children, and then to their grandchildren. They would tell those stories. A lot of the values today is not written down, but it's verbally passed down. And so the people that experienced those things had a good, strong, healthy relationship with each other. It was very unique. So those myself that went to residential school, some of the things that helped me through my experience in residential school was resorting to those values, what I was taught by my parents and my grandfather. My grandfather was a leader in the Sundance, and in particular what we call here in Siksika the Horn Society. My grandfather was one of the leaders, and had a lot of bundles I hear, and had a teepee, and we would, the family would go down where the Sundance grounds were, and every summer we would help prepare for the Sundance. I look forward to that. even though I was just a little boy, but I knew what my role was, and we, my older brother and sisters, they taught me, here you need to do this and that, and be very respectful. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun back then. So growing up, and when I went to residential school, those things that were taught, it it helped me to continue on. And when I was going through a lot of traumas in school, and those things, those values, those traditions, and the prayers that were taught helped me to overcome so many things that took place. And we would encourage each other. I remember when people would really, some of the boys would really cry, really get lonely, and whatever they were going through, we would gather around them, and then we would support them and remind them what we were taught. Remember your grandparents, remember what they said. So those values and the traditions and the prayers, when a parent is just out of the blue, taken out of that environment, and the parenting skills and the parenting things that were taught to them when they were young, and then they were taken away from that environment and placed into residential school, in some cases for 9 months, some cases for 10 months. And and then when they went back, a lot of it had changed. And so then they would go back, and it depends how many years for my case, I spent 9 years in residential school. And so what you went through in residential school, the trauma and all that kind of stuff. And so you start exercising and incorporating the environment that you live in. And for a lot of it, it was surviving. That's where the word survivor comes. And doing what you can to survive yourself. Sometimes you were all alone, like a 6, 7-year-old boy, all alone, trying to survive in whatever you can. And you lost those teaching, you lost those values that you were, and by the time you went back home, your parents, your grandparents were gone. And so the home that you knew, it was gone. And the teaching from your parents and those things, how to survive in the woods and so forth, those things were gone. And then all of a sudden, alcohol came into the picture, and it just went terribly wrong for many of our communities. So when you're talking about and hearing these people say, I'm an intergenerational survivor of residential school, the values that their parents and their grandparents was lost in residential school. And so it was difficult for a lot of them to go back, and then they start having their own families and so forth. It's because they didn't deal with some of their traumas. And like for me, I didn't deal with some of the things that took place. I was an angry individual. I don't know how many times I was kicked out. I even went to a theological college, and the first year I went there, I got kicked out of the school because people didn't know how to handle me. They thought I was just didn't listen. I was misbehaving according to them. But there were things that were happening inside, and they were being locked in, and they were sneaking out. I was frustrated, and I broke the rules, so I got kicked out. And I lived 2,000 miles away, and so I had to hitchhike home. But somebody came pick me up and talked to me, and we had a good 2-day discussion and so forth. And so the trauma, you need people to be able to talk to you in your mind. That's holistic Holistic is taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit. When your spirit is broken, you need somebody that has the qualification to be able to help you spiritually. And those values that were gone, they weren't there anymore. And so people that have good teaching, and so what I try to do today is spiritually just pass those on in a good way to my children and my grandchildren, and then also the mind. And when I experienced the traumas that I went through, there's very little that I can talk about that because I'm not a psychologist. But those people that are in training and are the experts, I let them talk about and deal with those things, because I know a little bit about it. I don't know too much about some of the things that people are dealing with, some of the traumatic experiences in their own lives. Holistically is dealing with that. And then the body, taking care of her body. So those things in the values of, I remembered my grandfather would say, you need to eat this, you need to, here, he would take us down to the river along the hills here, and then he would show us some of the things that we could use, and some of the things that we could use if we were sick, some of the things that we could eat, and when we went hunting and so forth, and how to prepare the, so that was taking care of the physical body. Those things are gone, and some people are left in their own way, and so probably maybe that's why we have such a high rate of diabetes and heart disease and so forth, because those values, those rich values, for many centuries before the newcomers came, they were given to us. So I just wanted to share with you very briefly today about the intergenerational survivors, what that means to them, and for some people that don't understand what they're talking about. And so I think it's important to recognize that because some of them are experiencing just as much or more dramatic experiences, and like the one I was talking to this week about her experience with her family, because she never went to residential school, but her dad never expressed any kind of emotion and support, no love there. So we have different ways of experiencing those things, and if you don't deal with it, then some things will happen down the road. So and I just want to let you know that there's help available on the phone line there. The technicians here will give you a phone number, and if you have things that are happening in your life, I want to encourage you to pick up the phone and phone those people, and those people will be available, and they'll talk to you, and they'll give you the support that you need. And if you're in Ontario, go to residential school survivor information, and they have their 1-800 numbers that you could talk to. If you're in Manitoba or BC, same thing. There's numbers available. So people, they don't have to live in denial. They can talk about that one-to-one with somebody that has the training and the expertise to. And I'm thankful that I had individuals that came along my side and helped me, that it was not my fault. I can get better. And they didn't put me down. They just addressed the issue that was here, and how I was able to deal with it in a good way, and help me to unload those things and move forward in a good way. So I'm thankful for that, and I feel a lot better. And and certainly I'm not perfect now, but at least I've come a long ways, and so I'm thankful for that. So there's help available, and if you're one of those that never went to residential school, and but your parents or grandparents went to residential school, and you're experiencing what I'm talking about, I want to encourage you to talk to someone in your community, or pick up the phone. Those numbers that are there, I'm sure they'll help you in every way that they can for you. So with that, I just want to thank you. And next week I'll be talking about the doctrine of discovery. Thank you.